Well, Carb Day's over. Pruett, Miller. I just thought, I was talking to A.J. Foyt after it ended. I said, I remember when Carb Day was 5 laps and you put it back in the barn, and he goes, absolutely. And he said, I said, it looks like lap 180. I mean, they're out there pounding around and making crazy moves. But what did we learn today, Mr. Pruett?
We learned that teams are still trying to make use of the somewhat limited time they had last week. I mean, it wasn't that bad, but we did lose a day to wind. We had some rain, so I agree with AJ. Teams were pushing a little bit harder than we might have expected them to, just trying to learn the last little bits, whatever they could. The one good thing that we saw, if you're a fan of parody or you love bow ties, Chevys were quick. Helio Castroneves on top. Team Penske, after being a lot of nowhere, finally found a little bit of somewhere. So we've seen the Hondas be really quick, but nice to see Chevy getting up there in race trim.
So I asked Monterior, also known as Juan Montoya, 2-time winner, I said, what do you got for Honda? He said, reliability. So, I mean, that's what they're banking on, and Will Power wins the pit stop competition. He's starting in the first 3 rows. Montoya's going to be on a tear. He loves his car. Pagano even said at the end of practice, it's the best it's felt all month. You knew they were going to come to the fore, but what do you think as far as, I mean, Honda lost another engine today. They got to be concerned.
It's the number one story going into the race, bar none. Sorry, Fernando Alonso. We love you, Triple F. It is Honda. And if I'm Chevy, to my knowledge, they haven't lost a motor this month. If I'm Chevy, I'm really happy that our cars are not only quick today, but also, I mean, how's this? When you see the pit stop competition going down with James Hinchcliffe, and he's in Jay Howard's car because his blew up and put a big old hole in the metal part of the motor. Yeah, if I'm Honda, not only am I crossing fingers, I'm crossing everything that can be crossed. So they had 18 race spec motors come in this week. Granted, there were some that were fitted just a little bit early. Alonso, for example. We were hoping there would be something in there that was fixed, something that would curb the explosions, eruptions, smoke, and letting the smoke out. Odds are still good, right? You look at the volume of really bad fast Honda drivers. There's a lot of them.
They're not all going to blow up.
So even if it's 50%, you go, all right, so, if we're looking at Hunter Ray, Rossi, Alonso, move on down the line, Hinchcliffe, there are a lot of really good Hondas. So even if Honda has a really bad day, they still have a lot of bullets in the chamber. But then you start the other part, right, Robin? You've seen here before. So driver X blows an engine. Where does it happen? Is it into a corner? Are there 3 guys right behind him? How many does that take out? So more than who's going to win or lose the race due to reliability problems, the natural concern is having seen Sebastian Bourdais go into the wall. You're hoping any explosions that do happen don't take other people with them.
Do you think, Marshall, isn't it amazing that we're talking about reliability? For the last decade, you never even talked about engines being a problem, ever. You never worried about it for the Indy 500 or anywhere other race.
Honda's been pushing hard, and they've said it. All their drivers have said it. Coming into the first race of the year, they've said it. They are pushing these motors harder than ever. I mean, we're 5-6 years into this formula. It's a fairly restricted formula. This year in particular, the way that IndyCar does its homologation for the engines, one year they let you do a fair amount of things, the next they don't. This is the don't year. This is you can't do much. So if you're Honda, you've got aero kits that have been frozen in place, and the road and street course aero kits in particular have been fairly deficient to Chevy. What's the one thing you can do to overcome? That's try and wind those motors up, and we're finding out how far you can wind them.
And I think from everything you've heard and I've heard is that it's a problem that they can't solve overnight. So they've got a handle on what it is, but it's going to take a while to solve it, or just a week or two, or a couple races, or?
Yeah, I mean, the way that IndyCar allows the engine manufacturers to treat their 500 motors are kind of that. They're 500 motors. If they break, you're not going to lose points, etc. But these are meant to be used after the event. I would not be surprised to see Honda rush whatever developments that they can. Once they pinpoint the problem, that's the other thing, too. They've pinpointed issues in 4 of the 7 that have broken. One thing that's broken in 4 out of the 7. They can't exactly say why those 4 broke, but it's not as if it's just one thing. Hey, we've got a bad batch of valves, so we're going to put new valves and it's going to solve everything. They still have to learn and find out the fix before they can implement it, and they aren't doing that by Sunday morning.
We should say James Hinchcliffe, who was last year's pole sitter, probably tomorrow IndyCar's going to allow them to one installation lap just to make sure that nothing's leaking and all the lines are attached, which they've done before in the past, so that's not bad. Now let's talk about a story. We had Sebastian Bourdais on the NBC coverage today, and he was at 7 o'clock this morning. He was the first guy in the gym, so it sounds like he's making some amazing progress. And Dale Coyne said, well, they told us he was out for the year, but he says he's talking about Le Mans.
Yeah, I think France going to Le Mans June 16, 17 is a little bit optimistic. Went and saw him again last night. Had tons of people there. Steph Wilson was there. His parents showed up. I mean, he's I don't know if he's had more people come and see him in the past week than he's probably had in a year, but the guy is a freak. I mean, physically, the guy is recuperating at a rate that's just ridiculous. So naturally, the guy from Le Mans wants to go back to Le Mans where he won last year to defend that win. I think that's a little optimistic. I think a certain short Brazilian friend of ours with a large nose is probably going to be taking that spot for him in France. But would I expect to see Seb back in a car before the IndyCar season ends in September at Sonoma? Actually would. Yeah. As crazy as it is, that guy is recuperating so quickly. His doctors are blown away.
Okay, I'm going to write an odd story Saturday for Sunday morning on Racer, and it's going to be about Fernando Alonso is the favorite in like half the websites I've seen that you can bet on the Indy 500. He's never turned a lap, and I said to Montoya, I said, you won your first Indy 500, but you'd spent a whole year in kart running ovals with a lot more horsepower, and you dominated this race. But I said, how crazy is it? And he said, it's crazy. He said, could he win it? Yes. But he said, there's so many things he's going to have to learn in those 3 hours. And he said, you can't teach anybody. And he said, he's picked up oval racing like nobody we've ever seen. But there's still things he doesn't know that he's going to have to learn on the fly, and that'll determine how he does.
It's been crazy. I mean, we expected him to be good. Expecting him to learn. The guy's a world, not just a world champion, I think widely regarded as the best driver in the world. We know Lewis Hamilton's won a number of titles recently, but I think anyone who watches Formula One probably believes that if you were to drop Fernando into the seat that Bottas has taken, he'd probably be leading the championship right now. So if you have the world's best driver dropped into a new discipline here, in an era where the cars are quick, but they're not as crazy and scary as they once were, it's not a shock that we can look at Fernando Alonso and say, yeah, legitimate reason to think he could win. Probably won't, but we would have never anticipated this until we saw him run and realized that this guy has snapped this up so quickly. That's been the shock. We knew how good he was. We didn't know how fast he would adapt. This has almost become easy for him. I never thought that would happen.
Mario Andretti said, I didn't think he had a chance to win before the month started because he'd never been on an oval, and he didn't get a car till May 3rd. And he said, I think he's got a chance to win. That's the best endorsement you can have. All right, we're going to wind this up. You got a story on Racer.com about China. You're moving to China. Congratulations. I don't think your wife would like that, but what's going on in China, brother?
It's just easier for me to get Chinese food, which is one of my favorite things. General Tso's chicken. We spoke with Mark Miles. They are talking with My Time, which is a subdivision of the Geely car company, $12.4 billion car company. Geely bought Lotus. They own Volvo, and they are interested in hosting an IndyCar race. Nothing's done. Mark said they've been talking for a little while, so that's great to hear. And they recently, just this week, signed a deal with My Time for IndyCar to be broadcast over the air there. So not cable, but actual, publicly available TV. So that's big for IndyCar. If you're trying to bring IndyCar to a new market, we already tried that a couple years ago. Sorry, Randy Bernard didn't work out. But if we're trying to make that happen, getting it on TV, getting folks accustomed to it and wanting the product, pretty darn good. So Mark said, definitely not 2018, 2019 at the earliest, but that could be interesting.
I probably can't go. I don't think there's any In-N-Out burgers in China, but I maybe could have a franchise there. Okay. I will make the first race prediction. I was going to bet $500 on Ryan Hunter-Reay at 14-1 before all the engines started popping. So now I'm going to bet $200 on Ryan Hunter-Reay, and I'm going to cover my bet and bet the other $300 on Will Power because he's fast, his pit stops are phenomenal, he's aggressive when he needs to be, and he wants to win this race worse than anybody else. I believe that. So between those two, maybe, and of course, Scott Dixon, that's three. No, those are my picks, those two. You?
I'm going to go with Scott Dixon. There is no one that is easier on his engine than Scott Dixon. There's no one who uses the throttle less to make speed. And thinking of the volcanic issues they've been having, If a Honda is going to last, and if someone is going to make amazing fuel mileage, we know that's going to be Dixon. And he's starting on the pole, and they're quick like a bunny. So,
And they haven't any problems this month.
correct. I'm going to throw a little bit of a bone to my fellow Northern Californian, Alexander Rossi. Strange to think of the defending Indy 500 winner as a sleeper. But again, keep in mind this kid, fastest lap of the year last year at this race. He's been quick outside of the front row. I think there's something there, and no, everyone's talking about what he did last year instead of what he's come back and done this year. So I think there's something there. If I'm looking at a dark horse, I don't know if we can call Fernando Alonso, the central owner of the spotlight, as the dark horse, but I've been waxing poetically about Ed Jones, who our friend Michael Cannon yesterday said that kid, rookie, is impervious to pressure. So I want to see what that kid can do. I think
You can't name any more.
no, I was going
Yeah,
to
so
say, he's my rookie of the year. He's my rookie of the year,
Oh,
but I
okay.
think he's also going to surprise some people and perform better than a rookie. You didn't give us our rookie, though. Don't say Alonso. Come on, that's ridiculous.
I'd have picked Ed Jones too, but I mean Alonso's pretty easy to pick because he's starting where he is.
Friends, we have a special guest, and by special I mean someone that you pretty much never get to see. This is Laurence Foster, the editor of Racer Magazine. He edits our life. Lawrence, what do you think? This is a busier media center than I've seen in a while. I think that's maybe not a surprise, but what's it like dropping into this once-in-a-lifetime thing?
This is not only a busier one, but also an extremely international one as well. The number of European journalists here, by the way, I live in America, but the number of European journalists is phenomenal. One of the things, there's two sides to the Fernando Alonso coin, and talking to a couple of the European guys, basically they're saying that if Fernando wins, does that mean that the European press decide that this thing is too easy? I don't think so. I think it's just a classy driver, doing a classy thing. Watching him in Carb Day running this morning, he did 32 laps, and to see him with a small group of cars and testing how much suck he's getting from different places relative to other cars, and then trying the moves into turn one and stuff. The bloke is so considered and so classy. He's got to be a factor. The other thing I think would be really good for the international audience as well is if Fernando doesn't do it, imagine an Andretti wins the Indy 500, and a globally recognised name, a guy who deserves to win. I think that would be a superb story as well.
Sounds like the next issue of Racer is kind of being planned out on camera here, friends.
Well, as long as they buy into it, it's they could ruin the storylines. The other guy as well, and obviously you two named most of the field. The guy who I think to watch out for, Juan Pablo Montoya. A bloke who has come here with, in his usual way, absolutely no thoughts, no pressure. And an interesting little geeky stat as well. Nobody has won the Indy 500 from the 18th spot. And I think that's a certain
Laurence
Colombian
Foster.
driver. That was really geeky, wasn't it? Yeah.
Good.
But I think JPM on Sunday could actually change that.
Robin and I got yelled at by Montoya yesterday for not calling him enough, to which I then said, "You never return my calls when I call." "Well, I'm busy. You call at the wrong time." I love the guy. He's just a living contradiction. All right, Lawrence, so Robin gave us his picks where he's betting. I like the Alonso angle. I like the Andretti angle. Anyone else you are putting your hard-earned money on?
Just based on, I do like Rossi as a repeat. I would love to see Marco win it. I think it would be staggering if Fernando did. But one of the sleepers as well, who looked extremely stout this morning, was Graham Rahal.
Ooh.
And also, by the way, he's kind of been mentioned. He's done certain quick things during the month as well. But Takuma Sato as well. Does that mean every driver has now been named in the field, or?
We're just waiting for the Buddy Lazier vote from you, and then we were going to sign off.
Buddy.
All right, friends, this is falling apart quickly. We're going to be back Sunday after the race, probably drunk, definitely tired. Regardless, thank you.
You'll go home when you're finished.
Yes, maybe Monday, actually. We have no idea. We'll see what the weather's like. Regardless, I'm Marshall Pruett. That's Laurence Foster. That's Robin Miller. Off we go, 101st Indy 500.